Good evening. This is Face the Issue. I am Gene Kiley, one of the co-hosts of that series with Dick Padgett. Tonight we have a special guest, Senator Green, and the generic topic is the Brava problem. For those of you who have followed this series, this is the third in the series on this one topic. The format of our program is to face a single issue in and of itself for the entire half hour. The issue has to have the substance and the importance, in our opinion, to the communities to use the half hour. The first in this series attempted to explain the problem of the Brava shortfall. The second in the series attempted to explain the problem of why the city's finances weren't up to the task of being able to accommodate the important shortfall that Brava has. To give you a brief summary of the Brava situation as it was presented in the first program, they have in round numbers approximately $2 million shortfall in the construction of the structure as it stands. The main reason for that shortfall is really not totally beyond understanding. The enormous boom in the economy in the state of Maryland in general, and construction in particular, has raised the cost of construction greatly over the years of attempting to put together the Brava project. In any case, the shortfall on the construction alone is nearly $2 million. The worst aspect of the Brava problem is that if the money is not available now to complete that construction, there will be an additional charge due to construction people having to tear down their setups and go away and then come back, of at least $900,000. I believe anyone rational would consider that an incredible waste of public funds if we don't get the money up now before that additional burden would come in. Otherwise, we'd be paying approximately $2.9 million for a $2 million construction. So if ever the time of the value of putting up public money now to avert an emergency, now is this time, and the Brava is an example of that project. The other money that is owed is for equipment, and that is approximately somewhat less than $1 million. But the pressing problem, the one to be addressed, is we have, to the best of my understanding, 4 to 6 weeks to get up the money, or we'll go into some delayed time, look at an empty building sitting there, and end up spending at least $900,000 extra just for the construction. That was the first program. The second program may have come as a bit of surprise to many people. For those of you who watched it, I can summarize it this way. Even, and if you would show the chart, please. Our debate circled around the last 2 decades of the unreserved fund of the Bowie finances. As of last fiscal year, that is 2001, Bowie had $9.5 million sitting there. And many people understandably said, for heaven's sakes, $9 million. Get it up now, save us all this tremendous problem, and we're off the hook. Why not? Well, again, to summarize that 30-minute program we had on just that issue, if you notice on this chart, it showed the peak point of the Bowie unreserved fund, which was $15 million in 1998. That money grew from a starting point, if you will, in 1985 of about $1.2 million. It was a non-trivial task to get it up there. When it reached that amount, in fact, I believe the year was 1997, the Bowie bond rating increased from AA- to AA+. And it's stayed there ever since. That alone has saved the city of Bowie a great deal of money. So at the very least, having a high unreserved fund need clearly paid off financially for the city of Bowie. The second thing shown in that chart is where were we the last actual numbers, and they were 9 million in the fiscal year 2001. Big number. Not as big as 3 years before. That chart alone shows that this unreserved fund can decrease $6 million in 3 fiscal years. for whatever reason, mostly apparently to the gymnasium and the senior center, two marvelous additions to the city, and perhaps other projects, but nonetheless, $6 million went in 2 years. Now, in spite of the fact that for the next fiscal year after 2001, 2002, Bowie has committed from the general fund two substantially new projects, the Bowie property and the Hopkins property, of $3.2 million, which will indeed, to some degree, require an accommodation by the unreserved fund, and for the additional operation and maintenance of those new facilities, the sports facilities for our youngsters. But in any case, just looking at those three points on the bar chart, they do show that the Bowie unreserved fund will have to be held to a slope, if you will, of $3 million decrease over the next 6 years, which is 1/4 the slope of the $6 million we've just had in the last 3 years. For a host of substantial list of reasons that we went into in the last program on that issue, we believe that decrease down to $5.2 million is unrealistic, and in any case, $1 million of that has to be frozen for the insurance fund of the city of Bowie. In any case, that's an encapsulation of the first two programs. Now comes, given this extreme financial situation that's embarrassment to all at every level of government and the people behind the Brava, we've asked Senator Green to come and outline his possible solution to this dilemma. Senator Green.
Well, first let me say how pleased I'm to be here with two former colleagues, former Mayor Richard Padgett and Councilman Gene Kiley. I want to thank you for two outstanding city officials, and I'm very pleased to know that you both are continuing to involve yourself in our community, which I think we're the benefit for it. Well, let me say this: Brava is a treasure. It's a treasure. Certainly, the auditorium is going to be a treasure. People say that you measure a community or a civilization or a society by the way you treat the young, the way you treat the old, and also how you participate and support the arts and literature. And I think Brava is a wonderful experience of the city's involvement in creating the arts. As you well know, the auditorium is a project that for 20-some years did not get funded because the county or the Board of Education did not make it a priority. As a result of that, a few of us met in a small room in Bowie High School with John Hagan, Dick, former principal, and we decided to go another way with the 501c3 corporation, which is Brava, which Tom Desideri, the local accountant, enabled us to get the 501c3, and I drafted the Brava corporation. As a result of that, we received $300,000 from the state for the A&E contract, and then the city, to their credit, stepped up first and gave $1 million to start the project. It was originally projected around $5–6 million. As you well know, Gene, as you aptly put it, because of the increase in cost and some bidding problems, it's now bloomed to $12 million. And as a result of that, you know, the city has stepped forward. Without the city's support in this project and the state support, the state has approximately $4.8 million right now in the project. I think Park and Planning has 1.7, and the city has about 1.8. And they raised about a little over $550,000 private funds, which is one of the problems we're faced with, that we're unable to match. Originally we were trying to match the state money, the county money, with private money. That hasn't been successful. Insufficient. As a matter of fact, we haven't sold the 800 seats, which we sold about 250. So I'd like to make a pitch that any person that wants to have a seat there in the auditorium, which is going to happen, definitely going to happen, they can buy a seat in memory of the family or a loved one for $200. Hopefully we can sell out those 800 seats. But we are at a crisis. Yogi Bear said, you know, you come to a fork in the road, you take it, but we can't do that. We can't do that. Gene, you're an old Boston Red Sox fan. Yeah. We've got to decide whether we're going to go down the road what the Chinese say, when you come to a fork in the road and it's a crisis, you got to go down to a road of opportunity, or you got to go around to danger. You spelled out some of the problems of danger. If we don't take advantage of funding this at this time, as you well said, it will cost us at the beginning well over $1 million, not counting the increase in cost of construction and other things. So at this time, because A, state is given a substantial amount of money, B, the county not stepped up equally, we have to insist that the city as a safe haven help us out. And it would be just a tragedy for that facility to be completely finished on the outside, beautiful, beautiful building there, sitting there, and those kids not be able to get into it and the community use it. So that's the problem we're faced with. So I've appeared before the city and asked them to step up the bat with some problem that they didn't have the authority to guarantee a loan from private industry, but we resolved that by Attorney General's opinion.
Is it fair to state that if no money shows up in the next few weeks, next 5 or 6 weeks, we'll be left with a gloriously, beautifully outside structure on the outside that's nothing but an empty barn, nothing whatsoever done inside?
Yeah, and
that's the do nothing option.
Yeah, and that would be a shame, because those kids will be there, they'll see that, and all the organizations in the city will see that. So I think it's, as you said, I think we have to find a way, and hopefully I'm hopeful that the city will step up the bat and get us through this era there, that we can get at least $1.5 million, because the feds are supposed to try to come up with 500,000 allegedly, but we won't know about that until late October.
Their budget
if we're
cycle.
lucky.
Because of their budget cycle.
Yeah.
Leo, what did you propose to the state council?
Yeah, this bridge loan
Well,
concept.
I proposed, because I know we're in a crisis, as I said before, I went to Tom Shepner, who was active, vice president of Citizens Bank, was involved in the chamber here. And I asked him, would you lend money to Brava if the city guaranteed it? He got back to me in a month or so, a couple of weeks. He got back and said, yeah, we would. But the city would have to be the guarantee of that. Brava could pay the interest, and hopefully we could get more money from the county and the state and from the Fed. So that opinion, which was July 16th, I think it was, said that definitely could do that. Matter of fact, our 1980s, we encouraged municipalities to get involved in the arts and to help out businesses in their community. So it's clear they can do that.
Okay, Leo, I have the opinion, and I'm going to read the first paragraph. It's really important.
Yes.
It's addressed to you, and it's from the Attorney General of Maryland's office. It says, you have requested advice on whether the City of Bowie has the legal authority to guarantee a loan to the Bowie Regional Arts Division Association, Inc., Brava, in order to permit completion of the government-aided construction of a civic facility for the performing arts for the use by the school system and the greater Bowie community. In my view, Bowie has sufficient legal authority to make such a guarantee, period.
Right. QED. There's no question about the legality of this and the appropriateness of that, especially given this uniquely embarrassing financial situation we have.
But you have to understand what's happened. The city has been a prime mover in this, no question about it. Without them stepping up the bat with a 1.8, and more important, without them agreeing to share the operating costs.
Yes.
When the county turned down the operating costs, when Park and Planning turned down the operating costs this year, the city stepped up the bat and were willing to sign the agreement with the Board of Education. The operating cost is going to cost $500,000 a year in itself. So the Board of Education is going to pay about $350,000 or $80,000 of that. So I'm asking the city either to move in that direction to save the money, or B, to come up with a loan to them to enable us to not let the contractors leave that facility, because if they leave, matter of fact, in the next 2 weeks, some of them will leave. I checked down there today. I think the painters will be finishing up and things like that. So once they leave, it'll cost, Dick, as you know, it'll cost money to bring them back, to bid, to rebid, because they already have phase 3 actually bid. I mean, it's already there, we just have to save
Okay,
it.
so we cannot wait for a question on the ballot in April 2002 and that kind of stuff. In other words, the funding has to occur within a matter of a few weeks to keep things moving.
Or else we will had mishandled in a fundamental stewardship way the necessary funding for for appropriate completion of a major facility that both the state, the county, and the city, and the school system have already attached to. I don't care who struck John. To the idea of just because of time, wasting 900,000 on a essentially 1.8 million loan. That's an additional 50% verdict. That's ridiculous. There must be a way to avoid that. Has to happen, in my opinion.
So the name of the game is as federal and state money come in later in the
They
year,
can pay it off.
they can help pay off the bridge money that's needed right now to keep things moving.
With one other contender, which we had mentioned in our past program, not to be forgotten, the county had, as we had said in the last program, had been accredited with essentially on the list of 2.2 million or something for the property. But the reality is, that was a gift from Levitt. I even checked with Mr. Westcott, and indeed, they paid nothing for that property. So as far as cash goes, the county hasn't put any cash on the line as every other entity has. I know Park and Planning had. But let me just at least mention this one thing. When the county needed money for outside the city limits, the Bell property, whatever it was, and they were in financial stress. I believe I got the numbers right. The city put forth an extraordinary thing and put up $500,000 to save that property. Now, if you forgive me, the county's budget, the last I recall, is many times the city budget. Nonetheless, in their time of distress, we came up with hard cash and a unique thing. I suggest, at the very least, from a non-member in all this history and what's going on, at the very least, $500,000 sort of gets us, the county, even with us in our time of distress.
Well, the city was really a good guy because we basically ended up having no say whatsoever in terms of what happens on the Vault Woods property.
Fine.
So, you know?
But we bailed them up because they had a financially embarrassing problem, right? And they wanted that property badly.
Exactly.
Well, we have a financially embarrassing problem, and everybody in Bowie that's reasonably sensible cannot let happen what's going to happen on the nobody moves option.
I'm optimistic. I really am. I've been in this project since 1995, and we've taken it through different stages. I'm optimistic. The city will meet on September 5th. I understand that they're out of session right now. They'll meet on September 5th. And that will be a meeting to discuss the Brava situation.
It's coming back to the agenda.
Good. It's coming back to the agenda. Now they can go the guarantee way, or they can go through a loan way, or they can make an outright grant. We'll have sufficient time, if they act on September 5th, to keep those people on the job. I've been down there. They said that they'll, right now, in light of the weather, in light of other things, they'll probably be there till the end of September. So we got a window between this show and
September,
when it's going to September 5th, when the city meets.
The 5th or 4th, or whatever
it is, when they're going to meet.
That meeting is critical to any rational resolution of this problem.
At that stage, I think, will be, because even with the $500,000 that they hope to get, Brava hopes to get from the feds, it's not in the budget right now. The feds budget, and that won't be available till next year anyway. And the General Assembly will not be able to do anything until July 1st of 2002 anyway. So we're at, as we say, we use the word crisis. We're in a crisis now. But September 5th, the next City Council meeting will be, and I'm optimistic that in light of the momentum that's building in this, that the city as a last resort will have to step up. If not, the project will, as you say, will
guarantee the loan.
Well, am I wrong? But my feeling personally is that a really first-rate performing arts center on Route 450 will set a positive tone that will counter the negative tone that's currently there due to essentially the demise of Marketplace and Sears leaving, Free State. A lot of negative things are going on. So this will set a very important tone for that area, and I think should be very strongly supported by the Chamber of Commerce and everyone else who is interested in Route 450 reviving, basically, as an activity and a commercial center for the city of Bowie.
I think it'll be a shining beacon right there
Okay.
on 450. And I would encourage people to just get down there and look at it right now. I mean, it's got a balcony that sits 250 people. It's got a stage that's equivalent to anything I've seen, a backdrop and everything. It's going to be a beautiful facility for young people to use at the Bowie High School, and for all the organization, arts groups and musical groups and others around the city.
And since the county really hasn't put in anything, if the city of Bowie, in putting in more money to save this thing and keep it moving, demands more of a say in the operational facility, that sounds legitimate to me.
This brings back to mind, maybe Leo can help me. I truly recall, I believe it was when I was in the council around 71, we went to a meeting with some sophisticated people from the arts world, not outside of Bowie, and some fellow come in. And just in the meeting was, I guess it was an executive session, or just whatever, a group, that gentleman said, we felt we were going to grow to 50,000 people soon, and we were full of ourselves. And we were looking for, we had nothing, we were looking for an arts center. And I remember this fellow saying, independent of what you think, there isn't a successful city of 50,000 or more in the United States that doesn't have a respectful arts center, something beyond, if you will, a city auditorium. Now that's independent of this whole thing, but that sticks in my mind. I think you were at the meeting, but I remember it vividly. And I remember the number was 50,000. And guess what Bowie just passed in the year 2000?
50,000.
We just passed 50,000, folks, and we don't have it. And the only other point I would like to make, just talking to people, I don't care who struck John. I don't care where the money comes from. Every one of you out there pays, unless I'm wrong, state taxes, county taxes, park and paneling taxes, and city taxes. For heaven's sakes, from that set, the price is going to be just construction, something in the order of 1.8 million or 2.7 million. And I'll be darned, Senator Green has put forward a proposal that at least gives the possibility of avoiding 2.7 million for exactly the same work we can get for 1.8 million. It is that simple. That's what's on the table, from my point of view.
And the most important redeeming value, too, I think, is the fact that the young people at that high school will be able to use that facility during the day. They'll have an auditorium. They'll be able to have classes in there, which they have nothing. They have a multi-purpose room. That is a shame for a school that's been there for since 20-some years. So we have two redeeming values of this. That's going to be connected to the school, and that also is going to be fully utilized by musical arts and other groups around the city.
Absolutely, and even for those doing smaller subsets of that within the community. For example, I remember my children took lessons and they used to have recitals. There is going to be a recital room. It's one of the major rooms by itself. It's a small, medium-sized one. Much better than anyone has now available for people when they want to do small things. So that's the room that Mr. Stewart showed us when we were down there filming the first of the series. So it'll meet the school needs and plus a much nicer facility readily available for people. So it will serve in a whole spectrum of needs that simply aren't available now. So it is a winning idea. As I say, any city over the size of 50,000, especially Bowie, burst at the seams with creative people. I don't think there'll be the slightest doubt it'll be heavily utilized.
There's been so much volunteer time put into this. I mean, it's an amazing amount of time. I mean, Gordon Stewart and Mary Nusser as leaders of Brava, and all the board of directors and many people have supported it to get it to this stage. Brava is a model for other communities. There's other high schools in Prince George's County who took our incorporated papers and are trying to set up corporations similarly so they can do it. So we have to be successful in this, and I think the city, I'm very optimistic that we're going to do it, and we're going to get that facility done, and it'll be utilized by everybody in the community and the region. And the city, the important part about it is under the management agreement, the city will have 3 people out of 5 on that. They will have, counting Brava, they'll be the majority of the people from the city, which will control the management of that facility on the days that are not, I mean, in the evenings and things like that, with help from the Board of Education.
So they'll be the scheduling authority. They'll have a consistent in-place place for people to go from a whole wide variety of community things. They'll have in place a standing reference position to get to the finest facility in Bowie.
Yeah.
Well, my attitude is if you don't put in, then you don't have a say. Right now, Prince George's County has not put in anything, from what I can tell, so that if the city of Bowie puts in even more, this reminds me very much of our go-round with the Bay Sox Stadium. Bowie was in a very strong position, and we were going to fund the construction of that stadium and have a total say in the operation of that stadium, and it would be ours. And suddenly Prince George's County found money because they really didn't like the idea of the city of Bowie controlling and owning a facility like that. As far as I'm concerned, the Brava situation is identical. If the county doesn't contribute, if the county doesn't participate, then I think the city of Bowie should participate and should take over, period.
For those who weren't here and don't remember what he's talking about, there was, after all the money's coming in from the state, the city, the county, and some private money for that stadium, there was a $3 million shortfall. And again, the county was saying, whoa, we have a financial stress for whatever reason. Who cares who struck John? Doesn't make any difference. And you may or may not recall, but the city, because we have this unreserved fund, did actually go public, and we said, we will put up the $3 million. We went through a thing with Manager Moore and looked at how it could be costed out and so on. And the point is, we came in and took over that problem. Sort of, if you will, we were willing to go the whole way, but we bridged the problem and allowed Peter Kirk to build the stadium. And there were plenty of cities other than Bowie that wanted to build that stadium. Okay,
well, they're building them all over the state now.
Yeah,
so
they're tremendously popular.
But I really want to thank. We do need some more private money.
Yes.
I want to thank the Bowie Blade. They put up $100,000
or $150,000. It's substantial.
And the Washington Post had $50,000.
Really?
So yeah, and so we've got some support from local communication papers, which shows you their interest in it and how much it's an investment. So I thank you for this opportunity to be with you and to highlight this particular problem that we're faced with.
Bowie has had several big ones. This one is big with a nasty, wicked twist. I'll just say it for the third and last time. $900,000 for no useful purpose is at stake if we don't, between getting up the money now and 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months from now. That cannot happen. $900,000 for nothing, in my opinion.